You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the SDSU Football Podcast. I am your host, Andre Hagverdian, and I will be joined shortly by my co-host, Paul Garrison. Today's episode, we've got two great interviews with two more new Aztecs. One that it will be coming in as a incoming freshman in the summer-fall timeframe, who's currently a high school senior, and another that's a JUCO transfer that is enrolled and attending classes for the spring semester currently. After those two interviews, Paul and I will give our takeaways from the interviews. And, the last segment of this episode, Paul and I will give you our thoughts on the recent coaching changes that were announced at San Diego State in the past week on the offensive side. So definitely stay tuned for that at the end of this episode. First, let's get to the interviews. Our first guest today is Ryan Silver, a 6'4", 290-pound offensive lineman from Junipero Serra High School. Ryan is currently a senior in high school and will be enrolling and attending at San Diego State as soon as this summer and will be part of the fall 2023 roster. Ryan helped lead the Padres to a 13-1 record in 2022 and a spot in the California Open Division Championship game. He picked SDSU over other offers from Army, Colorado State, Fresno State, Nevada, San Jose State, and UNLV, and is a 3-star recruit according to 24/7 Sports and ESPN. We want to welcome Ryan Silver to the podcast. How's your night going, man?
My night's going good. Just been at home, did some homework and all that stuff, but for the most part, just chilling.
Living the high school life?
I would say his teachers are going to be happy to hear that. There you go.
So early signing day, December 21st came and you signed to San Diego State. So how did it feel to finally become an Aztec?
I mean, it feels amazing. I've been committed for a while. I was one of the earlier dudes to commit. So it felt amazing to be able to lock it in and make it official and everything like that. So it's just a blessing. I've been dreaming about this ever since I was a little kid and ever since I started playing football. And I knew that's what I wanted to do, is play at the next level. So I'm just very glad I could be able to do it. And I'm even more glad that I could do it at a special place at San Diego State. So couldn't be happier.
Well, take us through your recruiting process. How San Diego State fit into that? What other schools you're considering? And ultimately why San Diego State was the place to be?
Yeah, so my recruiting started pretty local. I think I started with San Jose State and Nevada, but I ended up getting most of the Mountain West schools, and then I had two teammates that ended up signing down at San Diego. I mean, they offered me, and I was super stoked. I had a couple I have a couple Pac-12 interests and stuff like that, but none of them really bit, and I didn't want to be a second choice for anybody, and I was super excited to be on San Diego State's list, and couldn't wait to commit and kind of just get it underway. So
you mentioned that that you were one of the first commits, maybe even the first one at all in the class of 2023. You committed back in April. During just the process, did other recruits reach out to you for advice or anything, since you were kind of the first one to set all the wheels in motion?
Yeah. So when I was on my official, I think it was just me and Tyson that were the only ones committed then, and Javance committed on the recruiting visit on our official in the summer. But there was a couple kids down there that were SDSU was in their top 3, and they were still trying to do all their officials and stuff like that. And yeah, unfortunately we didn't get those guys, but I mean, they would just ask questions, and I mean, there's a ton of kids, like younger kids now, that are asking me about SDSU and stuff like that, for my team and stuff. So just trying to answer as many questions as I can for them through my experiences and stuff like that. So
We had Javance on earlier, and he told us how amazing that visit was in
yeah, it
June.
was
But
incredible.
yeah, so I mean, tell us more details, man. Who was your player host, and what are some of the highlights, things that you remember from that time?
So my player host was Kyle Trombley. He was such a cool dude. He let me know, and I got to hang out with some of the O linemen that were also down there. But we did a ton of stuff. I mean, it was during the summer, so it was kind of mostly just the football kids down there that were doing all their workouts and stuff like that. But I was able to meet some of the guys and hang out with some of them, and they were super down to earth and cool dudes. So that made me more confident of where I was going. But I mean, we just went a ton of places, ton of food, ton of all that stuff. So that was the best part.
Had you been to San Diego before, or was that your first time?
I have been to San Diego, but that was my first time really taking, like, as an older person, trying to take it all in, see what San Diego is really about.
Before we jump into what next year can bring for you, let's talk a little bit about high school. Junipero Serra in San Mateo was a Northern California champion, back-to-back seasons. What were your junior and senior seasons like?
Junior season was huge for me. We had a very senior dominant team, and I was able to start on that O line with four other seniors. So going into senior year, I was the only one returning. Basically, I had one other backup. He was a backup on the junior year, but he came up and started with me senior year. But junior year was incredible. I got to learn a lot from those guys, and I mean, Drew as a party was a big guy. I played right next to him for 3 years, so that was awesome, and I made a really big connection with him. I'm glad I can continue that at SDSU. But senior year didn't go the way I planned. I ended up getting hurt after the fourth game. Got a season-ending injury on my foot, so that didn't go as planned. But I mean, everything happens for a reason, and I mean, I'm still glad I'm still committed to SDSU and all that. And I was able to help out the younger guys that especially needed the most help because it was mostly a junior O line. So I was just helping those guys, coaching them every day I could, trying to be out there and trying to be a good teammate to them. So that was my role senior year, pretty much.
Hopefully, you've recovered from that foot injury, or you're
Yeah.
good to go.
Everything's going well. Yeah, I started PT and everything's starting to get back in place, and I'll be running shortly. So
Nice. Yeah, you mentioned Drew. You also had another teammate, Hassan Mahassan, who signed with last year's class. Also, Tiger U is also on San Diego State. He was in your high school. It kind of looks like San Diego State's developing a pipeline through Sarah. Is it an accident all of you guys ended up at San Diego State? You mentioned you had talked to them. Like, how is that? How are those discussions?
I mean, it's all Kyle Hoke. Kyle Hoke's our recruiter up at Sarah, so he's been doing a great job. He's a great guy, and he shoots it straight with you. SDSU is one of those teams that really just I felt like it was like true. I feel like during your recruiting times as a player, you have to feel out what is real and what is not. And I feel like SDSU was real for me from the start, which I really liked, and they were honest with me and all that. So, but I feel like Sarah is just. I mean, there's a ton of great talent that's going to be coming out of Sarah in the next couple of years, and the years that however many long years that Coach Walsh is still there. But I mean, it's gonna be a great place for anybody to get these players. So especially SDSU, I mean, we can continue the pipeline forever.
Way to go. So speaking of those same players, man, could you give us a little scouting report on some of your former teammates, starting with Drew as a party?
Drew as a party is a great dude. I mean, I walked into Sarah and I was like, who is this dude? He's massive. And I was able to play with him. I mean, he's a great guy, but he's a tremendous athlete. He's quick on his feet and he's strong as hell. And then we got Hassan. Hassan's a speedy, quick dude. He can do everything. And he's surprisingly one of the smartest people on the field. It may not seem like it because he's a quiet guy, but he knows everything that's going on and he works his ass off, if I can say that. He's the hardest worker I've ever seen in my life. So I give all props to him. And Tiger was able to make his way on the team. And I mean, he's also another guy that works his tail off. He got hurt junior year, season-ending injury, came back senior year, was able to start But it's just those guys, all three of them they're meant to be at the next level.
And now, what about yourself, man? How would you describe your game?
My game, I'm pretty smart with. I like to know what's going on at all times. I have been playing for quite some time now, and I feel like my attributes are my quickness and my toughness, but it's also my ability to read the field and read what's going on in between plays and during the plays and stuff like that, and picking up on keys of D linemen and linebackers and all that stuff, and being able to move in space is also good for me. I can get out there and pull and stuff like that. So I'll be excited to see what I can do and what I can continue to improve on the next level.
You're listed as an interior lineman. What specific position did you play in high school? And any discussions with Coach Goff about what you might be looking at at the next level?
Yeah, so I played right guard mostly my whole entire high school career. But when I was talking to Coach Goff, it was guard and center. So learning both guard positions and playing center, which I'm able to do. I was going to play center this year, so whole off season I was snapping and everything like that. So snapping's the easy part for me. I just got to adjust to wherever I'm put because I've been on the right side. So if they put me on the left side, it's just getting into that. I mean, I'm able to play anywhere. I'm versatile. So
Yeah, San Diego State went away from its trend this past season, played a lot of younger offensive linemen, started 2 redshirt freshmen. What has the staff told you about your opportunities to potentially play early on in your career?
yeah, they said there's always a chance that if they really like you, then you're always going to have a chance to start. But they are a pretty young O-line, and there are going to be some upperclassmen, rising seniors, rising juniors, and stuff like that I'm going to have to beat out. But I'm ready for the competition. I mean, that's the best part. That's what it brings out of you. I'm up for the challenge, whatever. I'm going to try to start freshman year, but if that's not how it works out, then I'll use that redshirt year and keep growing and continuing to get better and stuff like that. So
You already mentioned Coach Kyle Hope, but Coach Goff, man, he's a personality. Always fun to talk with him. But what is he like as on the recruiting trail and just forming those relationships? And then how excited are you to play for somebody who has been such a longtime NFL vet?
he's awesome. I met him. I got to know him really well when I was down on that official visit. He's just a super cool guy. Like it's past the football with him. Like he wants to meet the real person and who you are and stuff like that. And he asks genuine questions, and it's not just always about football, which is a huge thing for kids and stuff like that. So, but also when he came down for the at-home visit, we took him out to dinner, and he was awesome. Like he's just a super nice guy. He got along with my parents well, and I get along with him well, and it's nice to have that genuine conversation with a coach like that.
What was the restaurant of choice when you
We went to Original Joe's. It's it's like this old Italian place it's a pretty classic up here in the Bay Area, especially in San Francisco.
And what do you get there?
I get steak. I mean, I got pasta when I was there, but they got a mean hamburger. I think Coach Goff got a big old steak, something like that. So it's big portions there. It's big portions. So
there you go. What is it between now and the time that you get on campus that you're preparing for, thinking about, so you can just hit the ground running?
I'm just trying to rebuild this foot, make sure I'm 100% ready for when I go down there. Just strengthening everything. I mean, getting back into that football condition and stuff like that, running and just trying to regain all the strength in my foot back is probably the biggest part for me right now, especially because I still have a lot more time. I have a couple months and stuff before I go down. So I'm just growing, just trying to get better and continue doing this physical therapy. And then hopefully I'll be 100% by the time I get down there.
When will you be getting down there? Are you going to be a June enrollee or it will be fall?
It will be, I think I'll be going down in July, something like that. Cause I don't get out until like June 3rd. So I'll probably have a month after, and then I'll head down July. Cause at least that's what I'm going off of. Cause Drew went down last year around like July 4th, something like that. So
One of the there's a lot of buzz about conference realignment. San Diego State is a big part of those rumors about moving to potentially a Power Five conference, Pac-12, Big 12. Do you pay attention to that, and what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, it's whatever, but I mean, the bigger the competition, the better, I guess. I'm not going to really back down at any competition or anything like that. Not saying that the Mountain West isn't a good division and there's a ton of great players in there, but I think Pac-12 is a step up from the Mountain West, and that's definitely going to be a huge challenge for us, and it's going to make us a better team overall. So I'm excited about it. If it happens, or wherever the Big 12, whatever happens, I think we're ready for it. So
take me back to that injury that you had. You said the fourth game of the season, or after the fourth game of the season. I mean, you commit to San Diego State in April. The dark side of college football is that could mean that a school might say, "Hey, we want you to gray shirt," or maybe, when we offered, it was because you were healthy, things of that nature. What was just going through your mind at that point, and what were those first initial conversations like with State?
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing I thought about when I got hurt, and I was like, oh no. But I hopped right on the phone once I found out what it was. Hopped on the phone with Coach Goff, and he just told me, he was like, just attack PT as hard as you're going right now. He said, your offer stays with us. We still really like you, and I know you're going to get through all of this. And that just made this whole process a lot easier for me and took that weight off my shoulders right away. That's the easiest thing that could happen, especially because I had to get surgery and all that real quick. So that was a breath of fresh air for me.
Did Hassan going through his injury and his commitment to San Diego State kind of help you in that process, knowing that, hey, San Diego State went through that with my teammate, and they're gonna be there for me as well.
Definitely. I mean, we come from the same place, so I mean, it's in our blood. I mean, we're gonna come back even stronger. I know Hassan's doing great right now. I'm gonna have a great turnaround. So there's big things coming. I mean, it's just a little bump in the road. I mean, there's still a lot coming in the future.
No doubt. As a way to help Aztec fans to get to know you a little better, we like to do some rapid fire, non-football related questions, man. You ready for them?
Sounds good. Yep.
All right, man. What's your favorite food?
Favorite food: steak, pasta.
Steak
and pasta.
Steak. I was gonna say, I wanted to know what you were having. If it was the same thing. So, how do you like your steak?
Medium rare.
Medium rare. Nice. That's very, very good. And is it from the place that you took Coach Goff?
Yeah.
Nice. How about your favorite TV show or movie?
Yellowstone. I'm a big Yellowstone guy. That's been my thing this year. I've been killing that.
Okay, so and it moved to the top of your all-time list?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. I've had too many people tell me about this show. I got to get on it. Andre, you a Yellowstone fan?
I haven't watched it yet. No.
We have to
watch it.
Oh,
I've heard amazing things about it from people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, we definitely got to do that. Favorite musical artist or group?
I would have to say probably country, some like Cody Johnson, something like that. Something around those lines. I mean, there's a ton of different guys in there. I love country. Big country fan. But yeah, I'd have to say Cody Johnson.
What is your country music connection?
Nothing. I just kind of picked it up. That's what me and my friends listen to. We've been listening
Very cool.
for a couple, throughout high school, even before that and all that stuff. So just fell in love with it, kind of.
Are you originally from the Bay Area?
Yeah, I'm from San Francisco.
Who's your favorite professional athlete?
Professional athlete. This is tough. I mean, I think I would have to say Trent Williams right now. He's our guy in San Francisco. So I mean, I've been a fan of the Niners ever since I was born, and I think he is the best left tackle in the league. So he's a killer out there, especially at the line position. It's just an inspiration.
When you are not playing football, preparing for football, man, what are some hobbies and things you like to do? I
like to go fishing. It's just like something I like to do. And whenever I have free time, I've been also golfing a lot. I play golf with my brother all the time. And we just go out play 18. They're time killers basically. So just go out, have a good time and stuff like that. Try to waste time when football's not around.
There you go. So what kind of fishing do you enjoy?
Bass fishing and trout fishing. So there's a place not too far from San Francisco, up north a little bit, but there's a place we go and just me and my friends will go up there on like a Saturday morning or something like that and just go kill time for half a day. Just go fish and have some fun.
Sounds great. Sounds great. What are you thinking about as far as majors or areas of study at San Diego State?
I think I want to do something around the business lines, something finance in those areas. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do yet, but
Sure.
something in business definitely.
Man, you killed it, brother. What a great interview. Thank you so much for your time. Absolutely fantastic, brother.
Thank you guys for having me.
Have a good night.
You too.
Our second guest today is Joseph Hall, a 6'4", 265 defensive lineman that's a JUCO transfer from Saddleback College. Joseph enrolled at San Diego State for this current spring semester and will be taking part in winter conditioning and spring camp as he heads towards his first season as an Aztec in the fall of 2023. Joseph served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps prior to his 2 years at Saddleback College and will be looking to become one of the few Division I college football athletes that served in the military prior to playing Division I football. We want to welcome Joseph Hall to the SDSU football podcast. How's your night going, man?
It's going great. Just finished up with meetings at the facility, so it's nothing much to it.
Awesome. So you played 2 seasons at Saddleback College, but you signed as a JUCO transfer on the first day of early signing on December 21st. How did it feel to become an Aztec?
Honestly, it was really great. San Diego State was kind of the place where I wanted to land. It was the first school that I really reached out to and I had that real strong connection to, so it just felt good to kind of make it official, make it final at that point.
Take us through your kind of recruiting process as a JUCO transfer. How San Diego State was fit into that? What other schools were you considering in that process?
So originally, I'd met San Diego State at a junior college camp up at Sacramento State back in June of 2021 before the season had started, or June of 2022 before this last season started. And I'd met Coach Maddox at the time, Coach Enna. We kind of just talked it up and they really liked me. And it just kind of went from there, kept that connection with them. I was going to come in the fall, but it was just too late of a time period to try to get there that last second. It was just too many moving pieces. So we decided to wait on it, kept my options open and just kept real close with them. And then as the end of this season happened, it just came more true as it came.
And so, did you sign a preferred walk-on spot with San Diego State?
Yes. So I am a veteran, so my school gets paid through for the GI Bill and kind of all that opportunity. So, and that was one thing I kind of pitched them in the first place because I didn't want to spend another year at Saddleback. So I kind of told them hey, my school gets paid for, I'm open to just take the walk-on as it is because my school gets paid for. And I didn't want to change my mind on that when other schools offered me. I didn't want to kind of take back what I said. I kind of just owned what I offered them in the first place and just ran with it.
What other schools offered you?
Florida State, Auburn, Northern Arizona, University of Delaware, Southern University, a few more FCS, smaller FCS schools offered me as well, and then a handful of Division II programs.
And you mentioned that you're already, having meetings at the facility. I mean, what is it like just the first, week being on campus and all the transition that you?
It's a whole 360 spin from junior college. I'll tell you that. It feels like it's the real deal. I'm kind of embracing it all, just taking it day by day and really just learning the groove and getting accustomed to it.
You mentioned Coach Maddox and Coach Enna. Coach Enna obviously left and went to BYU a few weeks ago. It was announced. As a D-line person coming in, I'm sure you had a great relationship with Coach Enna. How did you react to that news? And, obviously it didn't impact your decision, but how did that news come out?
At first, I'm not going to lie to you, I was just kind of wow, he was someone I was really close with, and it just happened. But then at the same time, as a broader picture, it is a business. Football, college football in general is a business. So I know that one guy leaves, another guy's going to come and replace. And then with that, Coach Hoke as well, the head coach, he's very close with the D-line, so I know we're still getting very valuable coaching still. Yeah,
we were talking to some other defensive linemen as part of this class, and we were mentioning about how this is before Coach Enna's decision, but how Brady, Coach Hope, the head coach, is a big part of that defensive line. He's a former defensive line coach. He plays a big part in that. How important is it for you to be able to learn from someone that has so much experience at the NFL and college level?
I think it's very important, actually. It's almost like you're trying to sell a car with no experience of selling a car. It's a business at the end of the day. And if you can't have someone, that mentor or coach or a teacher, to teach you how to do that position, ultimately you're not going to really go anywhere in life or on the field at that point.
That's really good. I think the person who we talked to described it as heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little bit more practical, though, right there. I like that.
So, for people that aren't familiar with your game, how would you describe your playing style?
I feel like I'm very good at pass rushing. I'm very fast with the field, physical. I have the quickness to get upfield when it comes to run blocking. I can still do that job too. I can play on the edge and I can play on the inside. So I feel like I'm a very valuable and versatile tool on the field.
I believe you've attended a few games at Snapdragon. Could you just tell us about your initial thoughts on that atmosphere, and then also what do you think it's going to be like to run out of the tunnels and member the team?
I think the first game I came to watch there on a visit was the Hawaii game, and it was just like awesome watching them. This was the first time I've seen the stadium in person. Lights are flaring, cameras are going, every fireworks are exploding. They're out on the field. It's just like a humbling moment to be there. I'm like, okay, like I'm about to live my dream now that I wanted to do since a kid and really play at a Division I program. And just going into that, I was thinking about playing in the field. I'm like, I can't wait till I'm like in the spotlights. I'm playing here now, like underneath these crowds and putting on for San Diego.
Now, the Aztecs are losing all three starters on the defensive line. One of them was an All-American who came from a junior college to San Diego State, just like yourself. But it took a year for him to get fully acclimated. Jonah Tavai for a year for him to get fully acclimated. What have you learned from talking to guys who've made this move, or what are you thinking about so you can really mitigate the learning curve, hit the ground running?
Well, so originally at first, defensive line was like, I'd never played it before JUCO. I've never ever played that position in my life. So junior college was the first time I ever touched the defensive side of the ball. So it was kind of bumpy learning all the positions, learning all the kind of different fronts. But as it went on, I picked it up really fast. I'm pretty much a really good fast learner at that point. Transitioning and taking over from a guy that was at a high spot on the D line and now trying to fill in for that spot, I feel like it won't be as hard. With that, we have a very good secondary, linebackers, corners, and safeties. They're very well. So I feel like if we all work with the cohesion, it'll flow in one piece. And with the coaching that we have now, I feel like it'll be very well.
What did you play? You played offense before you got to JUCO?
Yeah, so long story short, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years straight out of high school. So I graduated high school in 2017. Back then I played I was strictly a wide receiver and then corner as well. And I was maybe 6'4", 170, 180 at the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I was like researching you, I found a YouTube video of you running routes and catching passes, and I was like, maybe you probably played tight end or wide receiver.
When I was in the Marine Corps, we had like a league team we kind of played. We would play other camps across Camp Pendleton. At the time, I was playing tight end for them.
Yeah, so we definitely wanted to get into that. Prior to Saddleback, you served in the Marine Corps. Thank you for your service for our country. Can you talk us through your decision to join the Marine Corps after high school and how that experience was?
So yes, so back in 2017 was my senior year. My grandmother was getting really sick, so I kind of made the decision to not be selfish as a young one. Although I wanted to be selfish and kind of focus on myself, I had to really step up and kind of realize what's more important in my life. So I took a break, and then I just stopped playing football at that point, my senior year, to help take care of my grandmother. And then season ended. It was like that summer, I think, and I was like, I'm just going to try something new, take it on a toll, and discover things in life. So I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps. I think like a month and a half later, I shipped out. That's how I came to like Southern California originally. Came to Southern California, ended up serving 4 years in the Marine Corps, 2 deployments. It was really cool. That's why I ended up playing football there. And the biggest takeaway I got from that was like just being professional, being a leader and having that voice in the room and like being able to like not talk when I'm not supposed to talk and really be a leader overall.
When you were in high school, before you joined the Marine Corps, were you getting recruiting offers? Is that something you were considering?
Junior college schools, a lot of junior college schools, maybe some Division II schools, but it wasn't much at the time.
And those are more on the offensive side of the ball?
Yes, for wide receiver and corner.
Interesting.
Yeah, incredibly interesting. So, I mean, take us through a little bit more what you just described, a little more detail if you don't mind. You mentioned earlier that it's always been a dream to be able to play D1 football and being able to run through the tunnel. Were you thinking that you were giving that dream up to be able to take care of your family at the time?
I did. So ultimately, I kind of thought like, okay, I'm giving a dream up, but it's not the end of the world. I do have a life to live. I wasn't getting the most looks that I wanted in high school, so I was like, it can't be the end of the world for me. So I kind of just thought I'm just going to live life and kind of see where it parts me because God has a plan for all of us, and I knew I would be in safe. I'd be in safe hands at the end of the day.
Hmm. And so, I mean, at what point are you, you mentioned, being at Pendleton, playing different Marine Corps, battalion groups, whatever that word is. And
Mhm.
at what point did it kind of dawn on you that maybe you could rekindle that dream and start pursuing it again?
So this was actually, I remember this was on my first deployment at the time. Her name was Gunnery Sergeant Williams. And I remember I was watching I think it was like Mississippi was playing. There was some game playing. I remember and I was like, wow, like I want to play football again. Like I remember just sitting there on deployment on a ship, like I want to play football again. Like that's the dream I had. And a lot of people really doubted that. They're like, you're never going to play again, blah, blah, blah. You're too old, all that. I kind of just zoned that out and I kind of like set my mind onto it. And at that point, that's when I learned about the NCAA rule to where they pause your eligibility if you go to the military. So that kind of really set the spark. I'm like, all right, I need to get out so I can play football now. And then ever since then, that's kind of like where I got the ball rolling. I started like looking up schools, trying to find camps and all that type of stuff to join and attend to as well. End of 2018, early 2019.
Hmm. And so where does your eligibility stand right now?
So right now I'm 3 for 2. So I have 3 years. I have 2 years to play and then one redshirt year as well.
And then what was your transition? I mean, going from wide receiver to D line. I mean, when did that happen?
It was a little weird because as I came to Saddleback, I wanted to play tight end. That was kind of my goal because I only really knew the offensive side of the ball. And at the time, it was Coach Crab who stopped me. He was like, I wasn't even planning on playing football when I came there. Actually, I just went to campus. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go to my class and see what happens. Like instantly, the first day got stopped by the head coach. I thought he was like a janitor at first. I'm not gonna. He just pulled up in a golf cart. I'm like, he's like, I'm looking for this class. He's like, I'm the head coach of the team. I want you to come play defensive end for us. So I was like, all right, sweet. Even though I'd never touched it, I just kind of went with the flow because I was like, it's a sign of I'm back here playing football again now. So I just kind of roll with that, and I didn't have any clue what I was doing on the field. I was just like kind of watching and observing and just trying to pick up the pace as fast as I could. And I think this was like maybe a week before the first game even happened. So I didn't play the first game. I didn't play the first 3 weeks because I didn't know the playbook at all. Like they had maybe a month and a half on me of learning, and I was still playing the catcher game as they're implementing new stunts and formations the whole time. So it's kind of a rough curveball to catch up the whole time.
How is there a comparison? Obviously, serving your country is on a whole different level than playing football in the grand scheme of things. But in terms of discipline and kind of self-reflection, is there a comparison between, being a serviceman and being a part of the military and playing on a football team?
100%. I told a lot of guys that at my junior college. In the Marine Corps, in the military in general, you have a big thing of trusting the guy to your left and right and then solely doing your job. Because if you can do your job, you know that the guy to the left and right of you is doing your job and you can go to war and do everything you need to do. That's the same thing for a football field. If I know that as a defensive end, I need to look at this or read my certain keys, and I know that the corner is going to do his job and the linebacker's going to do the job, it's going to flow very efficiently. So I know it's hand in hand with each other. And that's a big thing why I lean back towards football, because the camaraderie that it brings, the brotherhood is exactly the same as the military. So that's one big thing I look for, and I kind of feel at peace with it and like very at home.
That's very interesting. Your story isn't a typical story. You don't really see too many people that have served in the military and then come and played football. Obviously, there's service academies, guys who are part of the service academy playing football. Are you aware of any other people that did similar to what you did, and did they help you in that transition?
There are a few. So there's one other guy who did come because Saddleback, it's so close to Pendleton. There are guys that come out. So there's a few guys that are like at West Texas A&M now playing. There's another guy, I forgot which team he went to, but he's also playing as well. So it's very rare that you do come across that. And that's another big thing I want to be like spoken about, because a lot of people just don't understand it, or a lot of people that come out the military want to play, but they don't know how to play. So I really want to shine a spotlight on that in general, because just a lot of coaches are unaware about it. Some people don't even know I'm prior military, and I just want to put more of a broad spotlight on that.
Is there a thought in your future to potentially go back into the military, maybe after football is done?
I've thought about it, but probably not military, more maybe law enforcement, kind of going that route, California Highway Patrol, somewhere along that route.
Awesome. I think you're originally from Texas, right? You went to Judson High School.
So originally from Sacramento, California, but as my grandmother got sick, I left out there my junior year of high school to go play football out there, and then everything started kind of falling into place.
Got it.
Did you being stationed at Pendleton, did that like attract you to San Diego and still wanting to like be at San Diego State and be in the area?
It did, because I remember I like on deployment. I watched another video. It was like the San Diego State team visiting a Navy carrier, and I was like, "This is awesome! Like this is right here. San Diego's a lovely place. It's close. It's probably the biggest program here besides UCLA, which they're kind of the same distance from Orange County where I was at, and San Diego State just felt like home, and it just felt like the place I wanted to be. And it was like I didn't have any doubts about it. I just felt like I want to play here.
Now, did you say that you graduated in 2016 or 2017?
2017.
So, what is the best old man joke that your teammates have told on about you?
I don't know.
But you got them.
I've got a lot. It would be hard to try to rekindle them all right now. It's a lot. There, a lot of guys would just tell me I need a cane. I'm getting old. I can't play. Things like that. Like I've heard a lot of them, so it's just funny to me. And I just kind of keep my head on the swivel. I know there's a process to everything. And if you look at like Benny right now that I was playing at Georgia, I mean he's no older than I am, so I'm kind of in the same position as him. So I don't on that at all.
Talking about how you want to tell your story, you want to shine a light on your story, being in San Diego, obviously a big military town. Do you have any thought, maybe too soon for this, on how you want to tell that story and using, the Navy, Miramar is around here. Is that maybe too early to think about that?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say too early, but I have kind of thought of like how I want to do that and kind of really. I've talked to mentors that I have that are in the Marine Corps, so I'm kind of talk about like getting my story out there, making it more broad, but nothing too like for sure yet. Just still kind of planning on how I want to do that.
And Andre, like what branch? You know that the Marine Corps is in its own branch, right? It's a department of the Navy. What department is it?
Department of the Navy.
Which part of it?
Navy.
Okay, Navy. Okay, yeah. Sorry. No, every other Marine that I've ever heard say that they say, yeah, it's the men's department. But,
the men's department. Yeah,
men's department. Yeah. Sorry. All right. Anyway, man. So going in to get Aztec fans the opportunity to get to know you better, man. Just want to ask you some rapid fire, non-football related questions. You ready?
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Where do you like your pizza and what's on it?
Meat Lovers Pizza. I can go honestly anywhere. Italian restaurants have amazing pizza. That's pretty much it for me.
Nice. How about favorite movie or TV show?
Movies, I'm all over the place. Anything that has Will Ferrell in it, I'll take it. He's an amazing actor. TV show, I hate TV shows. They drag on for too long. I'd say Split and Zack and Cody. I'm not a big TV show guy.
That's awesome. You said any with Will Ferrell, but like, what's like one of your go-tos?
Daddy's Home, Step Brothers, Other Guys. Those are a few of my good ones right there.
Other Guys is ridiculous. That's your favorite musical artist or group?
Drake and then Avenged Sevenfold. So Drake as in like the rapper and then Avenged Sevenfold.
Who's your favorite professional athlete, either now or when you were growing up?
Right now, growing up, it was Reggie Bush, and then right now is Max Crosby.
And what is it about them that you like?
I remember, I think I was like fourth grade doing a presentation project, and I was just fascinated with. I was a Saints fan when I was a kid. I don't have no idea reason why, but I was just a Saints fan for some reason. And I loved when it was like Reggie Bush, Darren Sproles, Drew Brees. They were all just playing together, and it was just awesome watching Drew Brees play. So I just grew up watching him and loving him. And then Max Crosby now, he's an awesome athlete on the field. He's an amazing defensive end. I love him. He's awesome.
And when you're not getting ready for football, what are some hobbies, things that you like to do?
Exercise. I love exercising. I've competed in men's bodybuilding. That's kind of a route I went for a little bit. Did that. I had a lot of fun to it. Besides that, playing video games, or I'm a big believer of eternal students. So I always try to learn some type of new craft today.
What was that again? I don't understand.
Like an eternal student, you never stop learning pretty much. So I feel like
got it.
Learn in one area of your life, another thing in your life you can learn.
Gotcha. And so what is it? I mean, what is your process to being able to learn new stuff?
Something I don't know about, because I feel like even though, like, for example, I can be a top tier defensive end and I can know everything, but then there's an NFL athlete who knows more than I do. So I feel like there's always something you can work on and better yourself at.
That's awesome. And then area of study or your major at San Diego State?
Kinesiology.
Okay. Awesome, man. What a fantastic interview, man. Thank you for making time with everything that's going on.
Yes, sir.
Meet you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Paul, two more interviews that we had with new Aztecs, both fantastic interviews. Let's start with Ryan Silver. What were your main takeaways from our chat with him?
I thought it was a great interview. I mean, I think this is obviously not our first one with other classes last year and this year, and I think that it can be missed just what a cool kid that guy is. You know what I mean? And just obviously, you imagine his parents are really proud of him. Just really smart. Came across in a terrific manner. I think probably the biggest takeaway for me is just the what it must have felt like to have that injury so early in his senior season. What that would mean for whether he would have a scholarship, and then the fact that San Diego State stuck with him, that they went that route, and just the handling that in a really great way. I think in contrast with Brady Nasser, who we had at at the very beginning of this group, and just it's one thing for Colorado to say, okay, we're not going to honor these 13 commitments, but like you can do it where you treat people with like respect and dignity, and it's not like, oh, 2 days later you get this random phone call and the guy kind of basically just hangs up on you. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
and it's just the class between the two stories. I think it is pretty significant. What about you?
The injury definitely was something. It surprised me. I wasn't aware of how significant of an injury he had. But, we asked him, were you concerned that, your spot could be taken? He said, yeah, of course. And that he called Coach Goff, that night, and he was assured. And I think Hassan going through the same thing the year before, his teammate probably was very reassuring. And another example of San Diego State maybe doing things differently than the average school in terms of transparency and honesty, and having that trust in the player, and then the player having the trust in the school. So that was cool. I think the other takeaway is the Sarah pipeline that they're developing. He talked about Kyle Hoke as a recruiter in that area, what they've done last year and this year, what they could do in the future with, the next classes. And they've got 3 guys, all these Sarah offers that they may get. They've got 3 guys that can call up and be like, hey, how's it going down there? Is this a place I should come to? And chances are they're going to say yes, good things about it. So I think that pipeline is going to be nice. Ryan was the first commit in the class of 2023 in April. He led the charge, and I think when other recruits see that, there's a guy who committed early, then I think that helped. Right now we're in January, the class of 2024, no one's committed yet, obviously, but that time's coming up, and who's going to be that first class of 2024 commit for San Diego State, and who's going to open up the floodgates there? It'll be curious to see who that first person is and what kind of effect that commit will have on the rest of the class.
No, I think that's a really great point. About all of them, of course, but the idea to echoing what you're talking about with the pipeline to Sarah High School, it comes at a really good time because they've been really good. When a team can kind of do what they've done and be the Northern California Open Division champions, 2 years in a row, and they have lost in the final, but they lose to the number one team in the country both years, Mater Dei last year or 2 years ago, and then St. John Bosco, I believe, this year. You just capture the imagination, and these guys who are on that team, for all of the kids in the community, they know where they went to school, and they're going to be carrying with them, in a real similar way to what you see in a lot of Texas football. I think you can see that in California and in some of these schools that go on, these great runs. And so I think it's important that you do that, because as they've talked about, winning is not something that magically just pops up. You have to learn how to win. Winning is something you have to experience. You being able to do that and get kids from winning programs, I think it helps to have San Diego State also be able to have that winning culture that they're looking for. And then I think as far as Ryan is concerned, I think he is an exciting prospect. I mean, anytime, you have an injury like that, there's always going to be the questions of mobility, always going to be the questions of what, and that's going to be a process that he's going to have to work through. Prior to it, man, that guy's feet were something else. His ability to, get out on a screen, his ability to do the things that San Diego State has done, I think you can really see the fit going back to, just the Sarah connection, being able to have in that offensive line group two other Sarah offensive linemen that was on the same team with. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, that's that opportunity to be able to have two of those guys. He was a junior and then they were seniors, and have that. And then Tiger U coming back from his own injury. And you talk about obviously Hassan Hassan and what he's going through, but as an offensive lineman, he did that and is a little bit ahead on that curve, and can offer that camaraderie and help. And so I think it's a great situation for Ryan to be in. He's coming in ready to compete. I think there is a potential, if he can heal and get back to what he was, to be able to possibly play early in his career, like before he's a junior or something like that.
One thing we were talking about, Sarah, that reminded me was I saw an older gentleman wearing a Tom Brady Sarah Padres jersey at the Tampa Bay game Monday night. And I really wanted to go up to him and ask him about if he had a connection, if he went to that high school years ago, and if he watches football and if he knew these guys. But he walked the other way. I went this way. But
how funny!
I mean, it was kind of a trip to see that when he turned around and it said Sarah Padres on it. It was pretty cool. Our other second interview was a JUCO transfer, Joseph Hall from Saddleback College. What a story!
Yeah.
As we talked about with him, there's not many people that have his story and his path, to Division I football. What'd you make of our discussion with him?
Well, I mean, what you just said, the story was really, really compelling. But I also think that what a great get by the staff, right? I mean, not only because, the GI Bill is able to pay for his schooling, and so you get an opportunity to have a high level guy who's probably getting a scholarship somewhere else. If that wasn't the case, somebody who's going to be able just to have the perspective of, you think practice is hard? You think what Coach Hall is having us do, you think having to do that is difficult? I was on 2 deployments. This is what happened to my grandmother, and this is how I had to put my dream to the side. And now I'm here living my dream. That kind of stuff gets contagious, man. And it's really challenging for young people to have an old person's perspective, right? And I think that's what made Michael Shawcroft such a breath of fresh air, because he had that. But you also can't force it. It doesn't matter how many times at a team meeting you say, hey, your college career goes quick. Make sure that you're focused and locked in each moment, because it'll be over like this. I still remember my time. All the old people speak that happens to everywhere. But when you're lined up next to him and somebody is in the trenches with you, who carries himself in such a way of appreciation, carries himself in such a way of I'm going after my dream, that is, you cannot you can't, number one, quantify it. There's no way to be able to say, okay, here's the impact of it. But you just know that it has the potential. It has the potential, right? Nothing's ever automatic, but it has the potential to be very impactful at a position that needs impactful players, needs people who can navigate not having a new defensive line coach, even with Coach Hoke and everything that he does, for the second year in a row, losing the best defender on the team. Arguably, you're losing with Keyshawn Banks, you're losing one of your top 5 defenders, period, and all this kind of stuff. So they really need the line to produce, and to bring in a guy like this. He's already on campus, right? First guy we've talked to who's actually locked in. I just think it's a home run get for the staff, and something I think the San Diego community can really get behind.
That's what I was going to say. I think San Diego is a perfect place for him, and because of the military background in this community, and definitely, I think with or without him being on the field playing, that story should be told, and should be told over and over. But if he gets on the field and he's producing, think about how much of a bigger story that's going to be. A lot of times we talk about new players, especially freshmen who are 18, their bodies aren't fully developed. we're talking about them adding weight or maybe getting taller. I mean, Joseph is bred, he's built, like just sitting there talking to us.
Right. Right.
You can tell he's been through military training, workouts. He's been through 2 years of JUCO workouts. He's got the size and the strength to be able to play Division I football. I don't think that's going to be a question. The question is going to be more in terms of, he's only played 2 years of defensive line. How much has he learned there? How much does he still have to learn in terms of technique, in terms of strategy? And can he play? Because as we've talked about with any defensive lineman we've had on the podcast from the new guys, all 3 starter positions are up for grabs. And there's plenty of opportunities between starters and backups and maybe even the third string guys because of maybe potential nagging injuries or things like that. That's 9 guys that you probably need in the 3 deep to be guys that you can count on to get reps and play. And, that's going to be everybody's goal coming in, is they want to be at part of those 9 guys to play.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll see who makes the jump, right? I think that, you go in when you talk about the defensive line and you go into the year and, you're thinking that a guy like Garrett Fountain, for instance, he just moved to the line and you're going to maybe think, okay, there's going to be a bigger jump from a guy like that. And you're hoping for it. All things being equal, the rotation it shrunk last year compared to even the year before. And so I would expect it to contract again. And, a guy like Joseph Hall, who knows, obviously you don't want to put any ceilings on any kids or we would have any idea what that would be. But even if he was to go in and he was a guy who could fill a role, that like Cepho in 2021 had, where he's going to get 8, 9, 10 reps, but those reps, because he's so mature, are going to allow Garrett Fountain and Daniel Poco and anybody else who's going to be able to step up into that upper echelon, the front of the depth chart. It's going to be better than their winded rep. Whereas last year, Jonah Tavai's winded rep is probably better than that 9th person, and there's just no point in doing it. Give it to Tavai. So I think that dynamic is going to be really interesting to see how it works out. I think another thing that really, stood out to me and I thought was interesting, and again, it's because he's old. I mean, I think that's just it, is he's not playing just for himself. I think he gets the idea that, he's found a way to make his dream after the military come true. There's a lot of people in the military who might still say that they want to do that and they just weren't at the place in life. Something was happening. They weren't mature enough. Whatever the right things that could have somebody not be able to pursue that right out of high school, but that you could still keep that dream going. And that he is understanding that, like, his success at San Diego State, his work ethic at San Diego State, what he's able to do can help to create more of a pathway and to make what he's done that's uncommon right now, but to make that more common going forward. I don't think motivation is going to be a question for him. A motivated, mature, older person, either these younger guys are going to copy that or they're going to be beat on the depth chart.
There's a lot of people I'm curious and interested to see during spring practice, but he's definitely one of those guys on the list because I think he won't feel or look out of place. That maybe some of the younger guys will, because he's been through it at multiple levels, and I think he's got the body, as we talked about. Going back to one thing you said about the snap counts, like the percentage of snaps that Jonah and Keyshawn played this year versus last year with Cam Thomas was way higher this year. Okay. Because you didn't have those guys, the Cephos, the Jaleel Luckies, and Coach Hoke said something at a press conference towards the end of the season when we asked him why the defenses were struggling in the second half versus the first half in terms of giving up points. And he mentioned about not having those Cephos and Jaleel Luckies who can take those 10 to 12 snaps a game and play really, really well in those 10 to 12 snaps, as opposed to leaving Jonah or Keyshawn in there for those 5 or 6 extra snaps when they are winded. So they're definitely going to look to get back to that. And I think they have a lot of new guys or guys who haven't played San Diego snaps at San Diego State, but they're with all the people that they brought in, the depth has grown substantially, whether it's JUCO guys, whether it's the transfer Sammy from Oklahoma State, and then the freshmen plus the redshirt freshmen and the sophomores that haven't played. So they're building that depth chart so they can go back to rotating guys in and out to keep them fresh. And it's just a matter of who those guys are going to be. I think the depth will be there. It's just a matter of who will step up and gain those spots because we don't know. It's hard. If somebody asks me who's going to be the three starters and the three primary backups and the defensive line, I'll give you an answer, but I could be 5 out of 6 wrong by the time fall season starts.
Yeah, I do, and I think too. I think the other piece of it in reflecting on last year and some of the conversations, like we had with Coach Maddox, and he was talking about wanting to have 2 players at every position. That didn't materialize almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And cornerback would be maybe like the one exception. And so that's an interesting part of it is just because they have to be quality, right? Like Joseph Hall is going to have to reach a level to where he can be like Jalil Alecki, who his snaps are actually, for those 15 snaps, are legit Division I snaps, and there's not a big drop off. And I think that that's going to be the other part of it is they might have a big rotation, and that could mean that it's going to be a down year because none of them are good enough to really be able to grasp it. The flip side of it is if they also could have a small rotation, and that could mean that these guys haven't grown up enough because, it is a step up. I mean, Jonah Tavai, it took him a year. I mean, I remember Rocky Long calling him out saying, we went to the JUCO route because we wanted them to be ready immediately, and they're not. The San Diego State's doing the same thing. They're going this route because they need people who to be impactful right away. And I think the other piece of this that's really fascinating and interesting, obviously they took a transfer as well. There's been a theory, and everything with recruiting, there's been a reset button because of NIL, because of one-time transfer. There's been a reset button, right? And so these are just things to monitor and pay attention. But one of the theories from the coaches, because we've asked what's going to be the difference, is they thought that the JUCO ranks are going to be the places, the people who are going to have less spots, which means that maybe the kids that they're bringing in from the JUCO ranks this year in years past would have been at those Pac 5 schools. But now those Power 5 schools are taking the transfers from other institutions, which don't leave them spots for, a guy like Joseph Hall, a guy like, all the different people that they brought in. And so I think that's a really interesting idea as well, is that the quality of the JUCO player could be higher that's coming to San Diego State than maybe would have been available to them before because of the numbers game and how all of that works with NIL and one-time transfers, et cetera. And so I think that's another really interesting part of this whole equation and something to watch immediately, man, just a month from now at spring camp. There
was a lot of news this week on the Mesa.
Bro, you're not allowed to get out of town. Like they're punishing you for leaving San Diego, man.
Dude, I'm at the Tampa Bay playoff game. The game's about to kick off, and I'm getting DMs left and right about what happened to Hunky Cooper. We got the safety, and I'm just like, I can't do this right now.
Good for you.
But I remember when I got home that night after the game and just checking Twitter and reading comments and trying to piece together what happened, and it was a lot. And then, Ryan Lindley getting promoted to offensive coordinator, Coach Jeff Horton retiring. And then obviously Hunky Cooper being relieved of his duties as wide receiver coach, as Kirk Henny reported in the UT. Nothing from San Diego State has technically been released in terms of a public statement, although they did confirm to you that Hunky Cooper is no longer part of the program. Let's start there. What were your thoughts about, the shakeup in terms of from the wide receiver coach?
I think it's better, I think, to talk about this in terms of, I think, the whole picture than to
Yeah.
go and take it the way that it did. It's just the way that media works. If Hunky Cooper would have been after Horton, I don't think anybody would have been like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening with Hunky Cooper?" Jeff Horton brought in Hunky Cooper. He played for him. That was his guy. And it's not to say, it's not to say, I mean, we have an unbelievable amount of respect for Coach Coop. He was always one of the quieter coaches, even though, and that was only by choice, right? I mean, he told us like, "Hey man, I'm coming on your podcast, but I don't talk to a lot of people very often. And the reason is, I like you guys because you always remember," he told me, he said, "you always remember that these kids have parents behind them in everything that you do." And I thought that was great, right? So we have tons of respect for him. But I think that just the order in which it happened, because it was broken ahead of the retirement announcement, I think it may have given a little bit more of oh, there's something wrong, or, what are they doing? Things of that nature. Then I think it would have if all the pieces had come out together and at the same time. And so I think that looking at the entirety of everything, I honestly think it makes a lot of sense. Coach Cooper, he replaced somebody who was there actually longer than him. At the same time when Coach Cooper came in, it was the exact same comments, but from other players who had played for, Charles McDaniel for before that. And so I think that it makes sense, right? I mean, Coach Cooper was brought in by Coach Horton. Both of them are very kindred spirits about the kids first, great coaches. I think you see the opportunity that is there for Ryan Lindley to be able to put together his team, the people who are going to be able to, his staff, beg your pardon, strengthen whatever deficiencies he might see in his own game, to be able to, recruiting wise, to be able to go and just be on the same page with them. He's younger than Coach Cooper. That could matter. I mean, these things, there's all different parts of it. It's not to say that they couldn't work together or they couldn't, and if they would have chosen to go that route, that would have been wrong. It's not to say that at all, but you can understand it, right? And that Coach Lindley is going to be able to have a running backs coach, a wide receivers coach that he hired. And I think giving him that freedom and giving him that respect, giving him that power is smart, because if he does a good job, he's of an age that a Power 5 school is going to be able to, San Diego State's looking like they're going to become one. But he's not what San Diego State's had before. San Diego State has had people a little bit longer in the tooth. And even when they succeeded, it was like, well, okay, you succeeded, but because you're older, and you have your roots, you're going to be staying. And with Lindley, obviously San Diego guy, you would expect that he'd have that loyalty and all that stuff, but giving him his thing to go and succeed with it and put his stamp on the offense at this time, I can understand it completely.
Add on to what you were talking about with Coach Coop. He had 8 years as a wide receivers coach, which is a long time in this business. Yeah. It's not like a 1 or 2 or 3 years. And the emotions and the outpouring that we saw is expected.
Yep.
Given who Coach Coop is, what he has done as a person, developing young men. You even saw that from former players who weren't even on the offensive side of the ball, defensive players. And so that was expected. But I think emotions will subside. A new wide receiver coach will come in. The players will work with him. You'll get onto spring practice. And ultimately, the decision is going to come down to how they perform on the field and wins and losses, and how the offense does.
Right.
And I think if the offense and the receivers play well and they perform and the offense performs and they win games, people are going to be like, yep, makes sense. So in the heat of the moment, definitely it was an expected emotional outpouring. But at the end of the day, he was here for 8 years. He's going to move on. He's going to get another spot, and he's going to develop young men. in other programs, and they're going to have the same love and respect for him that San Diego State and Aztec Nation have for him. So I don't doubt that at all. With Lindley, I think maybe a few episodes ago we were talking about offensive coordinators, and I honestly believe this, even though I wasn't sure it was actually going to happen. That like by the time they got into like January and they had not brought in an offensive coordinator from the outside world, that they were not. That I didn't think they were. I thought that they already had a plan in place that Lindley was going to become the offensive coordinator. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. So it didn't surprise me that Lindley was given that promotion. You know, a lot of people want to harp on the fact he's never called plays before. He's young. He hasn't put in his time. But none of that stuff means anything.
Not in today's football world.
Look at who won the Super Bowl last year in the NFL. Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is younger than Ryan Lindley.
Is that right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, if he was younger last year, he'd still be younger today.
He was when Sean McVay became offensive coordinator for the Redskins. He was younger than what Ryan Lindley is now.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's the name. I mean, the football's completely going that way. I mean,
look at Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah,
is an offensive coordinator younger than what Ryan Lindley is now. You're going to get judged based on how you do when you're actually calling plays, not what your resume is and what you've done before. How can an offensive coordinator not become an offensive coordinator without getting his first job? Every offensive coordinator had to get hired for his first play calling job at some point, right?
Right.
I don't buy the notion that he's not experienced and that they needed to get someone that had 20 years of play calling experience or that had been a head coach or an offensive coordinator somewhere else. I don't buy that. Now, does that mean I think Ryan Lindley is going to do awesome and become this hotshot play caller? I don't know. We'll see. But to say that his resume didn't show that he deserved the position, I disagree with that notion completely.
It depends, I guess, how you want to approach things, right? Some people are like low floor, but a lower ceiling, right? There's less risk, but there's less reward.
High floor, low ceiling.
Did I say it backwards? Yeah, right. Yeah, sorry. So with Ryan Lindley, Brady Hoke is taking his lottery ticket because if this hits, this has the potential to be 100% the best hire possible. There is not, I mean, he's the school's all-time leading passer. When he played for San Diego State, they used to have a coach's show down at Claim Jumper. And his parents would go to every single one of these, you know. I mean, this is a guy who bleeds red and black. There is not a better person, ambassador for the San Diego State program, except maybe their GA for the cornerbacks. But that's another conversation. Maybe this one, because there's a running back coach spot open. But I mean, he's as good of an ambassador for what San Diego State, what it means to the community, what Snapdragon means, that there could possibly be. And if he can, I mean, it's not like he doesn't have a good resume. He was a quarterbacks coach in the NFL. He played in the NFL. He played in the CFL. He's went around and done some things, right? So it's not like he doesn't have a good resume. But I think the interesting part of this is that if it hits and he becomes a success, it's the best hire you possibly could have. And I mean, this is the equivalent of, you know, imagine if, and I'm going to get the years wrong, right? But imagine 2 years before Kevin O'Connell became an offensive coordinator in the NFL, Rocky Long had hired him at San Diego State. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do with Ryan Lindley, because Ryan Lindley is at that arc in his career where, you know, this is the same kind of thought. Could we have imagined talking to him in May?
Yeah.
As an analyst, a defensive analyst on the dark side, as he said, at Mississippi State, when we talked to him, it wasn't a year ago, bro, that less than a year from that, he would be the offensive coordinator at San Diego State. No way. It's a remarkable story. Is it a gamble? could you have went out and got a known commodity that, is a little bit of a retread because they've had some success or not success and stuff like that? Absolutely, you could have. And would that probably mean that person would have a lower floor? Like, because they're established, they know what they're doing and all that stuff? Yes, but it
A
probably also
higher floor.
dang it, why do I keep doing that? No, a lower floor. Lower floor, higher ceiling.
But that would be what Ryan Lindley would have.
So he's going to have a higher floor.
Higher
Right.
floor and lower
Okay,
ceiling.
I'm going to stop with this analogy because it's terrible. Okay, he's not going to have as low of failure, but he's also not going to be as high of a success. You take my architect skills out of this. And so I think, what else do you want? And I think it's a great time to gamble. And you gamble on the all-time leading passer. You gamble on a great ambassador for San Diego State. You gamble on a terrific person. We had Javance Johnson on the podcast, and it was his trust because of Ryan Lindley that kept him as an Aztec. I think it's absolutely, completely the move that should have been made, and they got the right guy. They got the right guy, not only to calm the waters after they lost their offensive coordinator, but they got the guy. They got the guy, and they made a home run hire for this juncture in San Diego State's history. It was as good as it possibly could have been.
You mentioned there's openings at wide receiver coach and running back coach. I think it would help Lindley to have some experienced guys at those two roles to help him with his transition. I think that's something that would do them service to bring in guys who, have a lot of experience working in different programs as a wide receiver and running back coach to help Coach Lindley with that, instead of going maybe with more inexperienced or maybe a former Aztec player, things like that. I think that would be nice to have some experience on that staff so that, that could help him with kind of the day-to-day as an offensive coordinator, right? You got Savai Esalu, who's still the tight end coach. You have Coach Goff, who's the offensive coach. So those guys are set. But with some of the skill position players, I think, we'll see who they come up with. I'm going to say when we have Coach Lindley back on the podcast,
there you go.
I'm going to be interested to talk to him about, he played under Bruce Arians in Arizona, who's, no risk it, no biscuit, vertical passing game.
Mm-hmm.
He coached under Mike Leach, the air raid. He's obviously played under Coach Hoke and Rocky Long, who are more of the run, and take your shots when you have them. I'm curious to see how he brings all of that in, what he takes from here and there, and how that philosophy develops for himself in terms of his play calling. And obviously, I think he mentioned in an interview on the John and Jim show about, he wants to create an offense that's suited to the players, not put the players into a set offense. And I think that's the modern, football is, what do your players do best? And let's do it, because that's how you're going to have the most success.
I completely agree about everything that you just said. And I'm remembering that conversation that we had, and he would talk about that Coach Leach would occasionally just kind of bring him over, and they would just kind of talk about from a defensive perspective. And, he always talked about how he thinks that kind of like helped him to kind of give him a more well-rounded picture and idea. And nothing. There's the other aspect of this, and this is pure speculation. Be super clear about that. But Zach Arnett did not have a QB coach. Can also become available because you have a parallel move that you could make that would make you way wealthier. That you're with somebody that you respect just as much as he does Coach Hoke, right? And so that could have been another part of it. Is like, look, like, I had the chance to go work at Mississippi State with the person who brought me there originally as the QB coach, or I can work under somebody I don't know. I think it makes sense to say, no, we can give you a better job. You can have the reins of this, because it's what we said, I think, a few weeks ago. I mean, sincerely, other than actually being in the role of offensive coordinator, what does he need to do? What is he going to learn if, if let's say Coach Horton decided to stay on an extra year, which is a good segue. Coach Horton, man, we had requested him a few times to get him on. It is a bummer that we weren't able to do that. I'm not sure we'll be able to, going forward. Definitely would love to chat with him, but the respect that man had was second to none everywhere. I mean, It was amazing. I don't know if he ever slept. I mean, you everywhere you talk to everybody, and it's like, oh, Coach Horton this, Coach Horton that. I mean, an hour before the announcement came that he was retiring, I was talking with JD Coffey's high school coach back at Kennendale High School in Texas. And I was just asking him about the process, and he's telling me about, that he first talked with Kyle Hoke. And then he's like, you know what? I think, and this is December. He goes, and you know what? I think actually Jeff Horton came and visited our campus. And we were talking about other players, not JD Coffey, but I think that's kind of where, and you're just like, this guy didn't go and like say, okay, I'm retiring and now I'm just going to kind of lay it up. I mean, this dude was working to make the Aztecs better to like the day that he retired. That's part of the reason why everyone's like, well, is he retiring or is he not? Because he was working and he was doing all the things that he'd always done. And I mean, again, that's just an anecdote of he's visiting schools out in Texas, representing the Aztecs 5 weeks before he's going to retire. Those rumors had been out there that was coming. It's just a guy who I think is what's best about the coaching profession. I don't know how else to say it.
One of the things out of many that I've truly appreciated about Coach Horton is, we put out a player card series in the off season last year.
Yeah.
But we put out cards for like how many? 80 players?
Yeah, almost the whole roster. Yeah.
I want to say maybe close to 90% of the time he retweeted it and added like positive comments about each of those players, about how awesome they are and what they do for San Diego State. Like that's not common, probably. Right. And for him to do that and to show his support for not just San Diego State as a whole, but each person individually, I thought was really awesome. And he's done that with not just the player cards. He's done that with a lot of times when individual players are in on a post or anything, not just by us, but by other people too. And that goes back to just being an ambassador for the program and to the kids. And it's like, it's always about the kids, about the players, about supporting them and growing them. And, Chance Bell, talked about how much of a father figure Coach Horton has been for him. Jordan Bird did as well.
Yep.
The list goes on, and the Texas recruiting pipeline. In our next episode, we've got a Texas special. Like
that's a hole.
Who's going to take over that? That's what I'm really curious about, because the development of that pipeline is, I would say, not solely, but predominantly built by Coach Horton.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Whoever's going to take over that needs to continue that like ASAP. And not leave a gap or let it linger, because other teams will poach in, and whether that next running back or wide receiver coach has Texas bloodline or connections might be something that helps them get that job. So, but
I think that's a really important aspect of what we're talking about as well, about the replacement. But just continuing, the same outpouring of respect, but because he's retiring and going out on his own terms, that was for Coach Cooper, you saw for Coach Horton. And it was things like, after I had a knee surgery, Coach Horton was the one who reached out to me. I was a linebacker. I wasn't even in his position group, and he was the one who went and wanted to check on me and wanted to see how I was doing, And so that's just who he is. When you would go to practices or SDSU, their pro day, the spring game, which, the pro day and the spring game, they're reunions, right? The older alumni come in, the former players come to support the team and get that peek at him and stuff. The people that would just flock to him and just want to catch up and just want to get a little time with him. he's just somebody who did it right and who did it well. And I think it's just a really, really, a phenomenal career. Wisconsin, head coach at a couple of spots, and he did everything right. I mean, he did what like made San Diego State, that had been known forever as a passing offense, and he produced, the Donnell Pumphrey and Rashad Penny in the same backfield, and they shared the ball. I mean, you're still going through and you're thinking about, the Donnell Pumphrey. I think it was Chase Price and Rashad Penny, and Rashad Penny was the third guy. And you're like, or Casey, it may have been Walter Casey, but it was somebody who's not Rashad Penny, and that they just shared that way as just like a part of their culture. I think it was just really special and just reflected him. It reflected him, and to not only like not be the offensive coordinator after 2020, but then to stick around the program and still to be its like greatest champion, a great story. And it's a great part, and replacing someone like that is just not going to be easy. I shouldn't even say that, it's impossible, right? Whoever they get to be in that role, whoever that is, just has to be themselves, and they're going to have to forge their own identity, because it's a legacy, and it's a person that's just, you just can't replace it. It's almost like you're starting from scratch, and any idea of where you're at. Texas recruiting, the other name that comes up most frequently among the people that we've talked to and stuff, is Kyle Hoke. He does a lot down in the Houston area, so potentially that's a great conversation with Craig Smith, is to say, okay, so like what happens with recruiting, right? Where do all of those kinds of things, does Ryan Lindley just slot right into that Orange County area that Heklinski had, and how do you do that stuff, and just all the shakeups. And so I think there's a lot of things. There's just a lot of things. I'd be interested to see, if Doug Deacon would have any interest in wanting to be the wide receivers coach. There are definitely people who do both of those roles. They're the special teams coordinator, and they have a position group, and certainly their relationship, Deacon and Lindley, that would be, I think a great hire and a great idea there. So there are a lot of things, but I agree with you on the idea that they need to have somebody who's going to have some sort of maturity, some person who's been there, can offer that. And they do have an offensive analyst who's been there for a minute, and can offer that kind of stuff, and that's what he's there for. So I think all in all, it's a great replacement. It's as good as you could possibly do to replace the guys that are moving on.
43 years of coaching for Coach Horton. That's just to tie the bow on that. That is a long and successful career on his part. So we wish him well in retirement.
I'm 43.
You are 43.
Yeah.
I'm almost there.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, yeah.
So he coached your entire life.
My entire life. Yeah, absolutely. So well deserved. I mean, just, phenomenal.
That's going to do it for us. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed the 2 interviews and our discussion on the coaching moves that were made a few days ago. Thank you guys, as always, for listening, and make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share on all your favorite platforms, and we will talk to you guys next time. You are listening to the SDSU Football Podcast, presented by the East Village Times, with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison.